Hi, I'm Paul Folmsby. One of the advantages of having been in the real estate profession for many years is the opportunity to see a variety of situations and how they ultimately turned out. And I'd like to share two of these with you. The first involves a property which I eventually ended up listing and selling. Dr. Brown lived in a golf course community in Harnett County. The subdivision featured nice homes on large lots, and it was home to some notable people, such as the North Carolina Secretary of State, the head of the Highway Patrol, and a professional boxer whose stage name was Bone Crusher Smith. Dr. Brown was an amateur radio operator, or ham. Attached to the rear of his house was a 40-foot radio tower, which could be cranked up or down. Atop the tower was an antenna, which could be best described as a TV antenna on steroids, because the longest element was 30 feet across. He usually left this assembly in the down position, unless he actually was on the air. When lowered, the antenna was still slightly visible from the street, slightly above the roof line. After living there for some years, there came a day when Dr. Brown received a notice from the Homeowners Association informing him that the tower and antenna violated the subdivision's covenants and it would have to be removed completely. The next day, Dr. Brown, who was also a very skilled photographer with his own darkroom, grabbed his camera and started walking around the subdivision streets, photographing every non-conforming thing he could see. And there were plenty, including a clothesline at one house and a several-foot-tall replica of the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse in the front yard of another. Back in his darkroom, he printed large, glossy photos, which he then sent to the association, along with a note that said, since these other violations had not been addressed, it was his lawyer's opinion that Dr. Brown was the victim of selective enforcement. He never heard another word from the association. And a few years later, I sold the property for him and he moved to Raleigh. The next chapter in my story came a few months later, and it involves a husband and wife who were both ham operators. Their home search was complicated by the fact that the husband was in a wheelchair. So we had to find a house with easy access and wide doorways. Oh, and they also wanted to erect a modest tower and antenna. You're thinking ahead of me, and you're right. The ideal property was right in the middle of a nice subdivision with a very active homeowner association. I told the couple that we needed to work on this situation on the front end to get success, rather than having endless battles with the HOA after they moved in. So step one was to find an antenna closely resembling the one that they wanted to put up and to take a picture of it. Next, they went to the closest neighbors and then to anyone who was likely to see the antenna. After introducing themselves, they showed the picture and explained to the neighbors that they primarily operated their radios in connection with the Skywarn program of the National Weather Service, which means they communicated with trained weather spotters across central North Carolina and relayed their field observations of severe weather to the meteorologists in the Raleigh headquarters. This approach was successful. Every neighbor agreed to sign a document saying that they were aware of the intentions of the owners to be, and that they did not object. At the next meeting of the homeowner association, my clients were given the green light to proceed, and they moved forward with the purchase of the home. Now, the purpose of this story is not so much to entertain, although I hope that you enjoyed hearing it. But here's the real point. You've heard it said that experience is the best teacher, but that's wrong. It's too expensive. Someone else's experience is the best teacher.